Welcome to YogiViews, where my guest is yoga itself, through interviewing those who practice it, teach it, sell it, or simply love it. I am Antonio Sausis. As more and more people want to practice yoga, the need for adjusting the orthodox practices to make them available for those in need becomes greater. While some teachers adjust conceptual aspects to make it feasible for people of different spiritual backgrounds, and others rename the ancient practices to have them be accepted in yoga-resistant circles, others modify the technical aspects of practice. That is the case of my guest tonight, who has adapted the techniques so they can be practiced while sitting on a chair. Something very useful, especially for those whose mobility is affected. She is Stacie Dooreck. Welcome, Stacie.
Good to be here.
Stacie Dooreck's own hatha yoga practice started in high school in 1993 due to an injury and continued as healing occurred from a simple daily yoga practice. She is a Sivananda certified yoga instructor who has brought on-site yoga for employees at Bebe Stores Inc, Lucasfilms, Adobe, and senior homes and centers in Marin County and San Francisco. Stacie is the author of Sunlight Chair Yoga. Yoga is for everyone, and created and leads Sunlight Chair Yoga teacher trainings in California, Florida, New Mexico, and the Sivananda Yoga ashrams, both in California and in Bahamas. Stacie.
Hello, Antonio.
Pleasure to see you again.
Good to be here.
And I would like to know, because I mentioned it briefly, but what was your first experience with yoga? When did you meet yoga for the first time?
Technically, in my mother's womb, because my parents were practicing yoga before I was even born. So my mother shifted to be a vegetarian, which is a part of yoga lifestyle. So by the time my mom was pregnant with me, they were full vegetarian. So I say at the start, the start of it all for yogic diet. And then growing up when I was young, my father would take us with our family to meet Guru Swami or Guru Muktananda in the upstate New York ashram. So we were exposed to chanting and meditation and spiritual awakening from the Guru. And in our household, we grew up with our whole life a vegetarian diet. And my father actually had a meditation room where he practiced yoga. So from the start, on that level.
Mm-hmm. And you said technically, so is there any other encounter you had with yoga?
Well, that was from my parents doing.
Yes.
My own yoga started from my own conscious effort in high school, from a neck injury when I started having to do my own practice. And that was when I really got into it. The rest was just the yogic diet, being exposed from my father to chants and the ashrams growing up, going with him. But when I really felt the benefit and the experience of it was in high school from a neck injury. And my chiropractor suggested I get an MRI. And my father said, just try yoga. But I wasn't doing it because he suggested it as a teenager. You always sometimes do the opposite. But when the chiropractor said, try a yoga DVD, or sorry, VHS in those days, in mid-90s. So I said, okay. So I tried it because she suggested it. And I got a Lilias Folan, a Live with Yoga DVD, who she used to teach yoga on PBS.
Piece of history.
Yes, she was my first yoga teacher, technically, hatha teacher. And I would go home from high school and do the half-hour videotape. And probably within 2-3 days of this kind of gentle, classical hatha yoga, by the last third day of it, I'd say, practicing, end of the session, all the neck issues were gone, completely. So never needed an MRI, whatever exactly the issues were with the neck, I don't know exactly, but the yoga practice, the posture, the relaxation, the breathing, relieved it all, and it never.
So you had a bit of a personal, physical into yoga, because it was hatha yoga, it was due to a neck injury. When did the spiritual part come by?
Probably growing up, going to meet Swami Muktananda. He would sit with hundreds of people in a room chanting. I was a little child then, But I think subconsciously the mantras, which are powerful repetitions of the divine name, they say. But being in a room when I'm 2, 3 years old with 300, 400, 500 people chanting, I'm sure that subconsciously, spiritually got in there. As well as my father through high school could play mantras in the background, take us to ashrams. So spiritually it was there in the background. Also growing up in my dad's meditation room, there was always books on yoga philosophy and the spiritual aspect of yoga. And I remember books saying God is everywhere. So as little children, my sisters and I, we used to joke around about it. And we said, God's everywhere, and I'm touching God, I'm punching God, and we used to make silly jokes. But I think in the background, that was subconscious ways that was starting to plant seeds that are saying, hey, the universe is pretty vast, but it's everywhere. What does that mean? Perhaps that was the spiritual start. I think the blessings and the power of the spiritual teachers is extremely important as well, and I'm sure that also got in there. So,
well, and I'm interested in you mentioning it because, as we know, not always the spiritual aspects of yoga are the most popular nowadays, and so it's a bit of my commitment to bring it back. So I'm happy to hear that it was there for you from the get-go. Now then you moved into, or now you're doing your chair yoga. So how did that happen?
Well, for me, it's all yoga. When I say chair yoga, it's basically yoga, just it's adapting it using a prop. As sometimes we use a yoga block or yoga blanket or a strap or yoga mat. Instead of those props, we're using a chair, enabling people who can't get up and down easily on the ground, whether from an injury, an illness, limited mobility, could be if they're in old age, could be if they're in a wheelchair. I say also limitations to time. You're sitting at your desk all day, 9 to 5, or you're traveling on an 8 or 10 hour flight. So there's so many reasons why you're not going to have time to do yoga on the floor. Or in certain public settings or outside, you might not want to get on the ground, but you want to do a practice. So chair yoga makes it accessible. You can do it anywhere, anytime, regardless of what you're wearing or how long you have.
But how did it occur to you, or how did it come to you particularly?
It came to me early on after my Sivananda teacher training in '95. I started teaching in the health club yoga before they had it then. So I started up a class that was getting pretty big. I think I was about 19 or 20 years old. And the class was large, 40, 50 people were coming every week. And a student brought his wife, who was in a wheelchair, who was paralyzed from the neck down. This is before I knew about adapting the traditional postures I learned in a chair or wheelchair. So just in the moment, I kind of just intuitively had her inhale and exhale throughout the whole class. She couldn't move her body. Her right arm, she could move an inch up and down. So as everyone was inhale, exhale, huge movements for sun salute, forward bend, I would just look at her and inhale, exhale, make sure her mind was staying with the breath pattern. She was receiving great benefit. So that was a way very early on, I was very aware that the teachings of yoga, I won't say have nothing to do with the physical body, but sometimes very little to do with the physical body or ability. That if you can keep your mind aware of the breath, that has effects for your mental habits, your peace of mind, as well as the nervous system. And you do what you can do. So that was early on, knowing that it doesn't matter your physical ability, you can always do yoga. But then I had my own experience from it in my late 20s when I got sick with Lyme disease from hiking in Marin from a tick bite, which left me severely ill for years on off. And that's a whole other story, but it was at one of my worst parts of Lyme disease where I couldn't comfortably sit on the ground due to joint pain. I couldn't forward bend due to dizziness and numerous other issues. So I rented a chair yoga for seniors DVD from the library for myself. And I did about 5 or 10 minutes of it, sitting in a chair, very gentle movements. And I felt the healing effect of yoga as I used to feel doing the half-hour session. So that made me really stay with it, knowing that yoga is a discipline. Doesn't matter if you're doing it on the floor, in a chair, standing, seated, it really doesn't matter. But for me, taking that effort and empowering myself that I'm going to do 5 minutes, even if I'm too tired to do an hour. Or if I'm too sick to sit, I'll do it on the ground, I'll do it in a chair. So I had the experience from that DVD that, wow, yoga is yoga at the end of the day. The rest is just adapting it to meet your needs so that you can practice.
Correct.
So it was that experience. And then from that, I was already teaching yoga for years. So then I, from my own experience, learned how chair yoga can be adapted and help from DVDs. I kind of scrambled to learn. Then in San Francisco, they had a formal gentle yoga training at Integral Yoga, which was wonderful. Part of it included teaching yoga in chairs, or even if you're in a hospital bed, how you can do yoga in any condition. So I was actually sick through that training, but dragged myself there physically, literally, lying in the back of the room half the time. Couldn't even sit upright. But as I healed from my own illness, I knew that if I had the energy and got better one day, that I would always share this work, because I felt how much, experientially, how much yoga can heal mentally and physically with illness. So I was kind of determined that if I get better, this is definitely going to continue to do this work. And that is what happened. And I happily want to say I got better, so now I have a lot of energy to share this with others, yoga teachers and students.
Perfect. And what are some of the premises of the chair yoga system you have come up with?
Yeah, well, I didn't all come up with it myself. I learned some from Integral. I'm trained in a few traditions of yoga. So basically what I was doing is not creating a new style of yoga. There was other teachers doing it, chair yoga, previous. Even though chair yoga sounds like a style, I would say it's not really a style. It's letting the person know, hey, there's going to be a chair there. You can come to the class. Otherwise, people see yoga class or beginner yoga or gentle yoga, and they might think, I can't. I have a knee injury. I have to wait till I get better. I have a cast. I can't get down on the ground. I'll go back to yoga in 6 months when I heal.
I see.
So the premise of saying it's chair yoga is just telling people, hey, you're going to sit in a chair if you need. You can use a chair for support standing. You can do the yoga. So it just makes people feel, oh, I can do this. So that's part of what the name chair yoga is. But what I do, just because I'm based in several kind of lineages from guru-based ashram traditions, I've adapted the sequences from Sivananda yoga, for example. If I'm teaching in the Sivananda ashram, or Kundalini yoga sets or kriyas can be adapted in chairs. So I've tried to keep the essence of the teachings from lineages that I've learned, and not change the teachings, but just modify the physical posture part in the chair. Or I should add too, the breath work part. I'm sometimes to teach in hospitals or assisted living homes, Alzheimer's homes. I have sometimes modified some of the breath pranayama work, just simplifying it for people so they can do it versus not.
Yes, yes. But what I'm hearing you say is that while perhaps because I too have come across some other chair yoga situations or yoga for seniors that involve a chair, but mostly the purpose is to address the difficulties of the body. And what I'm hearing you say is that you're using the chair so the body's difficulties can be resolved so you can access the yoga, the spiritual aspect or the deeper benefits that are not just in the body.
Yes, because how I've learned and how I practice and how I feel you can get the most benefit from this amazing ancient tool of yoga is to, in every class, what I've learned from Sivananda, Integral Yoga, Kundalini Yoga, is in every session, whether it's 5 minutes, 10 minutes, half hour, is to include the physical postures, but also breathing techniques, relaxation techniques, maybe some meditation in whatever form. So just combining all those, that to me leads to a spiritual place. Because if you can get rid of your back hurting, your neck hurting, any physical distractions, and if you can calm the mind waves down, as the yogis say, a little bit from some breathing exercise or some mantra or any mental technique, well, that is the spiritual aspect, because then you can kind of feel your spirit, so to speak, on that level, without just thinking about the anxieties of the mind or the aches of the body. So just by doing a well-rounded, holistic hatha yoga practice, whether chair or not, you can really feel your soul, your essence, just from getting rid of the distractions, whether physical or mental.
Yes. So so perhaps this premise, you were telling me about the premises. Is anyone else, another one you want to mention, or you? The premises? Of the work, of the chair yoga.
No, I just love the work of sharing chair yoga because I see how it brings yoga to so many people that wouldn't do it otherwise. Like I just taught recently, a few weeks ago, a yoga class at a Marin library. The people in the class, a lot of them would have never done yoga, but because it was called chair yoga, they thought, oh, even with this injury or this illness, or I'm not in shape, or I'm 95 and I can't really move that well now, they would try it out because of the name chair yoga. It made it comfortable. So I just see how it opens it up to so many people, all ages, all conditions.
And so I'm wondering whether the other effect is also present when you mention chair yoga, whether people who perhaps would think that, oh, that must be some yoga for sick people or whatever, then I'm not coming.
Yes.
It happens too.
Yeah, because people sometimes think chair yoga is yoga for seniors.
Yes.
There's some seniors that are in their 90s, BKSing, or many others that don't need a chair. So senior yoga doesn't mean chair yoga, but oftenly it's stereotyped as chair yoga means yoga for seniors.
Indra Devi,
yes.
At 100, standing on her
exactly. So not all seniors need it's chair yoga. Yeah, exactly. So I think that does get a stereotype sometimes. But what I find in public settings when I'm teaching chair yoga, people are coming in 20 years old from a car accident injury, or their back is out for a few weeks, or they had a chronic illness, they're exhausted all the time, or someone's recovering from a surgery. So there's so many reasons. So I see people really all ages. It's not at all just for seniors, but that does get the.
Now you have given it the name sunlight chair yoga. Why sunlight?
Well, first off, the yoga we're doing in the chair or in most studios, except Kundalini yoga, but every kind of yoga now is coming from a style called hatha yoga, means sun and moon yoga. So technically I should call my yoga sun and moonlight yoga, but it started in college when I was bringing yoga to health clubs that didn't have it. And I just, maybe because I was inspired by the southwest sun and open sky, but I came up with the name sunlight yoga and the Om in the middle with the sunbeams coming out, and created a logo in college and just stuck with me. That's what I've used since. So then when I was teaching more chair yoga, it became sunlight chair yoga.
And what are some of the benefits of chair yoga?
Benefits of chair yoga, like all yoga.
You mentioned
like all yoga is definitely easing physical discomforts, whether it's muscular tension, strengthening the body from injury or weakness to balance the body. So definitely physical strength, flexibility, easing of suffering in the physical body. So physical body for sure from the postures gets benefit. Mentally, you can definitely calm your mind, ease your anxieties, perhaps ease depression, help your sleep. Whatever it is that's off balance can be helped and assisted by the practice of yoga, whether it's breathing exercises, a mental repetition of a mantra, a sound current, the physical poses. All together I find the most helpful. And then deep relaxation, benefiting the nervous system. Once the nervous system is not overworking, we're all so used to going in this society, but when you do this yogic relaxation, maybe after postures or separate from, I find that you can kind of go back to what we're trying to achieve with yoga, is kind of go back to your natural state a bit more, even if it's just a little bit every day. So many benefits. Just going back to your natural state with less physical or mental distraction, as I mentioned before, that too can sometimes give you creative ideas. Sometimes you get in touch with, oh, I want to help this person or this community, or this maybe is why I'm here on the planet. You can get to some more like life purpose concerns, or kind of get more clear on what you want to be doing here, instead of just going through the motions.
And who would be the typical chair yoga students?
I would say not typical, but in an average...
Or more common.
More common. Definitely, it's for seniors, it's very helpful, very useful. Some seniors don't need to sit in the chair the whole time. We do chair yoga also standing, sometimes holding the chair, standing behind the chair for support, sometimes lying on the ground with legs up on the chair for relaxation. So it's not all seated per se. But seniors for sure can benefit if they're finding from age and maybe injuries or surgeries, they need the support of a chair. People who have gone through temporary illness, maybe they're just recovering or from a surgery, just need it for a short amount of time. Maybe it's a nice way for someone to ease back into their yoga practice that they used to do before an illness or injury. So it could be temporary. Or for some people, if they're in a wheelchair or disabled for their whole life, or paralyzed or partially, that might be their practice their whole life. I find it's been also useful, I've shared it with some support group settings, people who haven't done yoga before in a support group when they're in regular clothes without time to change, they can also benefit from it. You can do very easily 5 minutes of chair yoga with whatever you're wearing as you're sitting, even at your desk, without needing a whole hour to do your practice and a mat and the whole getting to a studio. So I find anyone can benefit from it. You can do it in an airplane, in an airport. You can do it anywhere, anytime.
Well, especially also being that we spend a lot of time sitting.
Yes. Especially people in an office 40, 50 hours a week, or someone's...
Absolutely, yes.
If someone's disabled or has an injury or illness, they might be on the couch or home, sitting in a chair most of the day. So.
And what do you think Master Sivananda would think or say about chair yoga?
Well, I wasn't blessed to study with him direct way back, but he was actually a medical doctor, an MD, and then a yogi, and wrote hundreds of books. I am sure he would be happy to share yoga with people who couldn't do it otherwise. I don't know directly how he adapted yoga, but he was serving humanity his whole life as a yogi to help people, as a doctor and yogi. So I can imagine he would not tell people don't do yoga till you get better and can lie on the ground and do postures as I'm going to show it. I imagine he encouraged everyone to start where you are. I can't speak for him, but I can imagine why.
Yes, but that's very, because you know that it's interesting that now modern yoga is a lot more open to being adjusted and adapted. But in ancient times, you either did the orthodox things or come back when you're able to do it. And of course, this was a problem for people who had mobility problems or limited abilities. So I'm interested in that.
Maybe people were doing it though, not telling others, but adapting on their own, getting creative in their own homes. We don't know.
Yes, who knows? Exactly. Now, you were mentioning the office, you were mentioning the seniors, and I know, as I was saying when I introduced you, that you bring yoga to corporate America or to corporate units here in the United States. How's that going? How did that happen?
That happened a long time ago, just from my love of the practice of yoga and knowing the benefits in my own life. So a long time ago, I just felt I want to bring yoga to where it's not already, meaning not at the ashrams, not at the studios where there already is yoga teachers, but let me bring it where they don't have it. So I guess mid to late 90s, I was inspired to bring it to health clubs, companies, libraries, community centers, wherever they didn't have yoga, to introduce it to people. So it was your interest
to bring it to where they wouldn't?
Yes.
And where?
I don't know where it came from. It was right after my teacher training. I was in college, and I did a teacher training, but it was not to be a yoga teacher, ironically. It was just to deepen my own practice and live in an ashram for a month. I was doing the practice every day in my dorm room, and I was wanting to go in deep. And there was a summer, during the summer I had off, the Sivananda teacher training. So I thought, I'm going to do that and really immerse in the teachings. So it was right after that in college, that's when I started noticing that health clubs didn't have yoga where I was in college, and I just felt this kind of passion or this desire to let me bring it to them. And at that point, I had to explain what is yoga. Now, most people know it, all the health clubs have it.
People know.
But then they literally didn't have yoga even in the health clubs. So the companies started more when I was living and teaching in San Francisco. Now, so many Bay Area companies have yoga, which is wonderful. Then they didn't have it as much. So what I would do is kind of connect with the company and tell them the benefits of yoga in the workplace or yoga in general, and start up classes if they didn't have it and if they were open to it.
And what interested you from bringing it to the workplace? Because you could have also brought a flyer and tell them I'm doing a class close by, why don't you ask them to come?
Well, I had a few years after college that I was sitting 9 to 5 at a desk, and I was already practicing yoga, so I felt the effects on the body and the mind from the stress or the physical position of being at a desk or sitting all day or at your computer, from deadlines. So it was during those times, and one ironically was working for Yoga Journal full-time in '98, but sitting all day in that experience, I felt how much you need to do your yoga to counteract the 8 hours sitting on a computer, how you need to do your practice to balance that out. So your back feels better, shoulders, decrease stress. So I had the experience of 9 to 5 life for a few years, But my passion was really in teaching. So,
Yes.
so after a while, I wanted to share that.
So let me ask you personally, perhaps, did you find that having a practice while at your work time was more beneficial or more feasible than going to class afterwards?
Yes, on one hand, it enables you to do your practice, where if you, and I see it now at places I teach, if you work 9 to 5 or 9 to 6, if you maybe have a family at home or partner, you're not going to want to first go to a studio, take an hour-and-a-half class, drive home. It'll be 9 at night. Yeah. And it doesn't happen. And then you wait for the weekend, and then the weekend might get busy. So weeks can go by, you didn't do your yoga or maybe work out. So I do find having it on site enables employees to get their practice in for their mind and their body.
Absolutely, I imagine. And because also my wife works in corporate America, and she takes her lunch break and she rushes to a studio to do her yoga, take a shower and come back to work. So I can imagine she would like to.
Yeah, this is basically saving the employees the time to change, get to their studio, do the class, get back. It's right there, either midday, end of day.
Yeah, and probably also saving some loss of time.
Yes, which is part of this
productive time.
Yes, exactly.
As well, yeah. How have you found that you're received? How do you find that you were received?
Yes, I think so. They asked me back. I keep teaching. So many companies want to have it. I often do find in the corporate setting or in a company, again, like what used to happen early on is a lot of people try yoga that wouldn't otherwise because the company's offering it on site. If it's described in a way that's like safe yoga practice, anyone can do it, accessible for everyone. I find people try it because it's there, but they wouldn't on their own perhaps have gone to a yoga studio and tried yoga. So I've watched people transform their physical health, their mental health, maybe their sleep improved. I watch over the months and they tell me how their yoga practice once a week, only once a week even, has transformed maybe their work day, maybe their sleep issues or whatever it is. But I watch over just even a few months, not even, short amount of time. Yoga is very beneficial, very quickly.
Are those some of the most important benefits that they report?
There's so many. Definitely it can help. Stress is the big thing in the workplace. They want to relax, they want to de-stress. Sometimes people don't have time to exercise, go to the gym, move their body. So they're very happy to do the yoga postures at the end of the day. But I do find it's very important for everyone in general, but especially at an office setting, is to do the relaxation, the breathing for the mind, to unwind at perhaps end of day, midday.
Correct, because the mind is way more active in those type of settings than the body.
Exactly, and you're very externally focused in those settings. You're on the computer, working with people, meetings, scheduling, deadlines, maybe work travel. So it's a lot of out there focus. So when you do the yoga, you get to go a little bit inward.
Stacie, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Antonio, for having me here.
Thank you for coming and sharing your passion and your insights and this work of yours that fortunately is, as Sivananda wanted, taking yoga everywhere. So thank you. I wish you well in your endeavors, and I hope to have you back at some point.
Thank you, Antonio.
Namaste. Namaste. My guest today is Stacie Dooreck. Her own hatha yoga practice started in high school in 1993 due to an injury and continued as healing occurred from a simple daily yoga practice. She is a Sivananda certified yoga instructor who has brought on-site yoga for employees at bebe stores, Lucasfilms, Adobe, and other corporate units here, and also senior homes and centers in Marin County and San Francisco. Stacie is the author of Sunlight Chair Yoga, Yoga is for Everyone, and created and leads Sunlight Chair Yoga teacher trainings in California, Florida, New Mexico, and the Sivananda Yoga Ashrams in California and in Bahamas.
I hope you liked our show today. And if you care to let me know, shoot me an email at antonio@yogiviews.com. I look forward to seeing you the next time.